Hello again, my friends, and welcome back to Carpo's channel. Howdy peeps, how's everyone's doings? Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. And if you're not, I don't fucking blame you. You know, the last couple of years have been some complete bullshit. And I had a few thoughts that maybe when this whole thing was over, maybe there would be more connection. Maybe people would begin to see through the bullshit that we're constantly immersed in, through no fault except for our own, and we all buy into it. We talk about the dopamine problems and how we're all addicted to our phones while we're looking at our phones complaining about it. We complain about government and all the policies that we feel hold us back, yet we don't take initiative. And what I mean by that is we play the victim in this society way too often. And it's becoming... Well, it's gotten to the point now where basically anyone who plays the victim card is scoffed at. You get the eye roll, like, oh, poor you, poor you. And the truth is there are plenty of true victims in society. But the problem is people use that as a way to gain leverage on other people. Whether they say, well, you can't talk bad about me because I'm a minority, or because I have a different sexual preference, or because I feel a certain way about a certain color or idea. People have become so overly hypersensitive about every topic that we can't even have a civil discussion about anything anymore. And I'm starting my own trend. I'm going to call it Covet22. You know, it's funny, every time I type in the word COVID or use my voice text over the past couple of years, my phone would say covet. And I thought that was kind of funny because it didn't know the word yet. Of course, it's well known and every algorithm picks it up now. But I thought Covet22. We're living in 2022. Think about this. This thing was discovered in 2019. It has been over 2 years, and people are still walking around paranoid and worried and judging each other over their medical choices. I went to pick up my kids from school today, and you know, it was a beautiful sight, seeing all the kids run around and seeing the smiles on their faces. And I told this story to my wife, and I was like, you know, for the last 6-8 months, picking up my son from school, and he's in elementary school, there's always these, you know, the teachers walking their students out front, dropping them off to the buses and whatnot. And there's this one teacher, she just always looked like she was just hating it. She looked like she was miserable. And I could only make an assessment or a judgment based on nothing. You know, it was just like, she just looked like she was bummed out. I saw her for the first time without a mask on after the mandate was lifted the other day, and she was all smiles. And I thought, well, maybe that's just because of the change of policy. No, I could tell she had those eyes that maybe were deceiving. The idea that, you know, looking at her, I thought there was my ignorance about another person based on the fact that her mouth was covered. And I know this seems shallow to some people. A lot of people don't care about the mask thing. They say it's no big deal. Yeah, who cares? The kids don't mind, and hey, it's to protect the elderly. That's virtue signaling. That's playing the victim for someone else and saying, well, we have to protect each other. Look, if, as someone said, if we really wanted to completely protect everyone and save lives, we would just stop driving cars. We would stop burning oil. You know, the unseen crap that we deal with all the time. Finally, we're facing something that, you know, is basically the invisible enemy, and everybody panics and freaks out. And over the first year of this, I was as cautious as possible. Like everyone else. Well, not everyone. I know there's a small segment of people who say, oh, well, I didn't care about any of this from the beginning. Well, if that's true, I do consider that a little bit selfish, in the sense that in the very beginning, we didn't know what was going on yet. And it's better to be safe than sorry. That's one of those the truths in life. Better safe than sorry. But honestly, I've changed perspective on that over the last couple of years. And I think a lot of other people have, probably, you included, had a lot of deep insights into society and what works and what doesn't. We've seen the failure of government, the failure of healthcare, the failure of, you know, capitalism in the sense, and don't get me started on that. I'm not here to promote socialism. I can't stand the idea that, you know, there are folks out there who think that socialism or communism would work in this country. I respect that, but it would never happen. And my belief is, I guess I'm more of a libertarian than anything, but I'm not a libertarian. Don't get me wrong. I don't have a political view because none of the political views I have looked into reflect my feelings on society. And so this may seem a little off track from what I originally was talking about, but it's not at all. This all ties together. Only, every year something new happens, whether it's a war or some sort of an event, an earthquake, whatever, and we hear about somebody who, oh, those poor people, oh no, a tsunami in, what was it, 2004, 2014, who knows now, time flies, and, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people perish, and we say, wow, that's horrible, it happened over there, hope that never happens here, and then we go on with our lives. This is the first time we've had an actual crisis that we all of us, worldwide, for the most part, were affected by in some way, shape, or form, whether it be lockdowns, whether it be mandates, whether it be how our children feel because they're learning remotely, which was a complete nightmare, and I'm not going to go into the kid thing because I'd go on forever, but finally, after all this shit is starting to subside, as I said, I thought that people would maybe start to come together on certain things. And we are. Believe me, I see it. I see that media has lost its grip and alternative media has lost its grip. In other words, people aren't falling and saying, well, I'm taking the red pill or the blue pill. Fuck the pills. Don't take any pill. Just fucking listen. Listen to each other. Listen and talk in a way that we can actually have a productive conversation without trying to dominate each other and be superior to one another. It's bullshit, And so when I say covet 22, I should define what I mean by this, because this is going to be my hashtag for the year. Covet 22, meaning covet is to truly desire or try to obtain something. And what we need to obtain in 2022 is a sense of fucking self-respect and motivation and initiative to do something for ourselves. I've had some hard times. And so this is why when I say hear people complaining, like, I'm not going to say the millennials, because I hate it when people do the ageism thing. This isn't about millennials or boomers. That's some bullshit right there. There are plenty of boomers who are still hippies, who are trying to change the world for, the better as far as they think. And there are plenty of young millennials who are full-blown right-wing nutcases. I mean, it doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't. It really does not. Just because you have social media and a little bubble where everyone tells you what you want to hear doesn't mean that you're better than other people, or you know what's right, or you have the best values. I tell myself this all the time. Just because I have subscribers that comment and leave good, nice, kind comments, I want to assume that's because of the content that I promote, and that I'm trying to be respectful and try to be honest. But at the same time, I realize there's a lot of people who watch my channel who may disagree with the topic and decide just not to comment or not to watch it. That's what we need more of. Understanding each other and understanding we have different views, but not being one of those people who metaphorically says, I'm going to unsubscribe from you because you said something about trans people in sports. That kind of stuff. This is just one example of many, but fine, do so. But if you're willing to separate and sever a connection from someone or an idea or a group, whatever it might be, just because you disagree with one thing or one policy, you might want to rethink your process there. And actually, this is seen in churches a lot, but I won't get to that. The way that people might have an idea that's a little bit outside the mainstream, and they're ridiculed for it. It's okay to think outside the bubble. But at some point, and here's where the epiphany happens, you start to realize that, and I hate to put it this way, but traditions exist for a reason. There's a reason why when I was a young kid, I was a full-blown left-wing, liberal-minded person who said, all conservatives are idiots, and oh my god, all they want to do is keep things the same. I did a lot of research about this, found out that people who are conservative-minded actually have different brains. literally. I mean, this isn't, some bullshit I'm coming up with. This is actual scientifically studied, and doesn't mean that it's fact, but that people have differences in their, I believe, frontal cortex and their amygdala, the way that they handle information, the way that we process information. It comes down to a very basic idea, what they call risk aversion, or what is it? There's risk aversion, which you tend to be more, conservative minded if you're averse to risk. And then there's openness to experience. That's what it is. On the far left, where people are very open to new ideas. And this is where we have a problem. Because as a liberal myself, or a classic liberal, and when I say that, I mean that I don't associate or relate to any liberals today. There's kind of a thing I thought up when I was thinking about this. I realized I'm a classic liberal, therefore, basically to other people I'm a conservative, which is absurd. It's like when I told somebody that people have accused me of being a right-winger and a Trump supporter. I've had people accuse me of using my platform to sponsor right-wing extremist ideas because I talked about something. That's what I mean by cowardice and weakness. The fear to even talk about something. And I'm trying to do this without being scathing. If you happen to be one of those people who wants to call others out and virtue signal because of what they say and what you think they intend, the very least, if you want to be a social justice warrior, the very least you owe to people is to straight up ask them what they mean by something. And that would be, for example, to use Joe Rogan as the example, instead of accusing him of being something because of what he said, ask him what he means. This is what's lost right now, discourse. And for anyone who thinks that, it's just the way the world works, it's not. If you look back to some of the interviews in the 60s and 70s by people like Walter Cronkite, some of the philosophical debates that happened on mainstream media, NBC or CBS, they would have like hour-long commercial-free discussions with very educated and very intelligent people. But the thing is, they didn't come out with hubris and arrogance and say, we know what's best and you should listen to us, like the Bill Gates of the world. And I need to make a side note because I brought him up. I respected Bill Gates up until a couple of years ago. I didn't care for him, but I thought, no, he's doing his own thing. Cool, he's out helping people in Africa, doing the polio vax. Come to find out, the truth behind his, charities, if you will. And I think that that's where we can all start to really come to a realization that the bullshit that we're fed constantly is we only believe it or don't believe it because it's, we hear a certain thing, right? And we think this resonates with me or this doesn't. Then we choose to believe it or not believe it. But really most of it doesn't matter. What other people are doing, what rich people are doing, it matters to an extent, sure. But what we really need to do is take initiative in our own fucking lives. Stop looking at what's going on and in other countries, or it doesn't mean we don't have to pay attention to what's happening in the world, but what I mean is don't become obsessed and move straight from COVID into now we're worried about war. Next thing you know, it's going to be something else. The truth is, if we have one solar flare big enough to take out the grid, we will be much less worried about the world's issues and much more concerned with our own. But we have a window to everything that's going on right now. The answer to this, by people who don't want you to look at it, is to say, well, it's all fake news. And what I found is people do that when they don't want to believe something. It's not that the article itself or the idea is fake. It's just that I don't want to hear this, therefore it's fake and it's bullshit and it's all propaganda. There is a lot of propaganda. But basically you can pick any news story that's happening and say, okay, that's probably in some way, shape, or form true. How are they twisting it? And this is where out of the woodwork come people like Russell Brand and Joe Rogan. It's not about them. I said this to someone the other day. It's like, it's not about them. Nobody cares really about Joe Rogan or Russell Brand. It's the audience that they're bringing and the conversations within the comments, as well as looking at things from multiple points of view. This is something we're starving for, all of us. And so it's hard for me to say all of us because, I don't know what life you live. I don't know what kind of situation you're in, and I'm not going to pretend to understand it. But I do know that over the last couple of years, something I can know for sure is we've all had some bullshit happen. We've all dealt with, hey, how fast has the last year gone by for you? Pretty goddamn fast, right? I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't agree on that. So here we have one thing. Our lives are going by fast. Why? Is it because we're getting older? No, this is happening with all age groups. There's a reason for this. It's because we're not living. We aren't living our lives and experiencing things. We're experiencing everything secondhand, whether it's through a phone or a computer or bad arguments. The truth is, getting out and actually seeing the world is what really matters, and doing things. Like, I started building guitars a couple months ago. I've just had my hands into it every day. I finally completed my first bass the other day, and I was so proud. I'm like, I completed this, and as a carpenter, I've completed a lot of projects, but it's been really, really hard for me to motivate over the last 2 years to do anything like that, to start a new business, to start a new idea, or to finish the book that I've been writing for years, all these things. And the reason why, to be honest, I lost hope. I started to lose hope. And I slapped myself, really got to slap yourself and wake yourself the fuck up and say, dude, I'm not going to be this person. I know better, and I know that I can do better. So there would be weeks where I'm totally motivated and other weeks where I'm just like, fuck this. But every day I wake up and I try hard. I try my best. Often I fail. But here's the thing that we can all agree on, hopefully, whether we know it, whether we agree on various principles, religion, politics, all the bullshit in the world. The one thing I think that we can all agree on is we know when we need to do better. We can be self-critical, push ourselves too hard, and be the person who's always working, work. That's almost a virtue signaling in itself to always be busy. It's the hustle culture. The hustle culture is bullshit. Don't believe it. You don't have to work 16 hours a day to be happy. In fact, you'll probably be unhappy. What you've got to do is find something that's a passion for you and do the best you can on it and try to move forward. That's it. So COVID-22, to me, it means covet the year. It doesn't mean covet any particular thing. It means covet the time that you have. Covet time, because time is all we have. In fact, one of my favorite quotes goes something like, time is the greatest of all currencies, or time is the only currency, rather. Time, currency, time flows, okay? The term currency, a lot of folks don't realize this, but currency derives from current, which, like a current in a river, is supposed to flow. This is why we call it cash flow. There's so many metaphors that this is why the rich get richer, because people don't realize, if the money stagnates, nothing happens. And that's part of the problem. We live in an economy that's really fucking people over. People have these student debts that are ridiculous. If you need to go to the doctor or the dentist, even if you have insurance, you're paying deductibles up the ass. You feel like everybody's trying to fuck you over in this world. You know what I mean? But you can't, because it's not true. I've tried to tell folks this before when I've had conversations. They're like, everybody's out to get me, and I went to the store and this happened, and I talked to this person and this happened. I said, dude, you're opening yourself up to these problems. Because 99% of the problems we have are self-created, and 99% of the fears that we have never come to fruition. I can't remember the old quote about how we fear things that will never happen more than things that ever will. I urge you to study philosophy from the ancient times up to, Nietzsche, and there are plenty of different ideas out there, and the reason that they endure is because people have had these thoughts before. There is something unique with the technology that we have now. But, I've got to say, if you're fucking up, it's probably your own fault. Because if I'm fucking up, I know it's my own fault. Not always, but we aren't held back as much as we would like to think we are. In America, we have a lot of freedom here to do whatever the fuck we want. And I know people would say, well, I have to wear a mask when I go out to the theater. And yeah, all that shit was fucked up. But you know what? There are bigger problems that we have out there also. We need to nip all of our freedoms in the bud as far as making sure that we preserve them. But things are way more complicated than we make them. If we want to complain about something, we have to be able to have viable discourse and to properly communicate the discussion we want to have, so the person on the receiving end isn't just hearing us flapping our jaws and complaining. That's all I got for today. Thanks for listening. I appreciate y'all. Hope you have a better year this year if you didn't have a good year last year. And if you did have a good year last year, then I hope you have an even better year this year. Remember to covet 22. Make it your year. Fuck the haters. Fuck the problems. Fuck the world issues. Focus on what you need to focus on. And don't let your emotions be siphoned off by other people. Peace out.